Trigger warning. Today's STP deals with issues of suicide and may contain graphic descriptions of suicide ideation. On STP, we're all about having the conversations around mental illness. Now, a few weeks ago, I did an episode on suicidal ideation, and I was actually really surprised at how many people, first of all, watched it, and then, second of all, how many people had questions. It's funny when you're in the mental health space, you can feel like what you're talking about is completely 100% normal and it's the normal shared experience. Uh, but it's not. And I've learned that lesson again. And we're going to dive in and we're going to answer a bunch of questions today on STP.
Welcome to Shattered the Podcast,
sharing the lived experience of mental illness on
A father,
a mother.
a family.
Let's go.
Let's go.
Let's go.
Let's go.
Okay, I don't normally do a podcast like this where I just talk without any real preparation. But today we're talking suicidal ideation, and I'm going to answer some of your questions, and I'm going to leave this podcast unedited. We're just going to talk about it, and we're just going to keep going no matter what happens. So, all right, so let's dive in. The first question is from Sue from Adelaide. First of all, thanks for listening, Sue. Second of all, your question was about choice. Why did I make the choice to kill myself? And is suicide a choice? Clearly, at the bottom of at the heart of it, yes, it is a choice. You have to take a physical action to harm yourself. That makes sense. However, it's that thought process that people assume that I am sad, I don't know what to do, I think about it, I decide, yes, I'm going to take my life, and then I say goodbye, and then I take my life. And it's like a progression, it's like a to-do list. And that's not it at all. The thoughts are there all the time, even on good days, even on happy days, even when the sun's shining. It doesn't matter. There's times when suicidal ideation will just invade everything, and you can do nothing except either ignore it or outshout it, which is what I do. If you watch the suicidal ideation episode, I explain why the day that I tried to take my life was a watershed. It was the moment that I realized I didn't want to die. I realized what I had to live for. And that is what has allowed me to overpower suicidal ideation when it comes. So take, for instance, yesterday, I was at a school fete. It was a beautiful day. I was happy. I was smiling. I've looked at some pictures. I seem incredibly happy. But at one point, the noise was getting so bad and the screaming was in my head. And it was like, oh, this is it. You need to kill yourself. And instantly, I was able to go, no, that's not what I want. I need to go for a walk and I need to get into a quiet area. That's why when we talk about choice, it's so, I guess, weird. Because it's yes, you're making a choice, but it seems like you don't have any control over that choice. You don't have any thought process that you can go through a checklist. Because I'm sure if somebody did do that, and maybe somebody has, but most people would stop when they got halfway through the checklist, because if they're compass mentis enough to write out a full-on checklist, they're probably going to realize that, hang on, this is probably something I don't want to do, because they're thinking about it logically. Thing that people don't really talk about is when suicide goes wrong, and a person gets really harmed or even disabled because of their attempt on their life. They botched it or did it well and didn't survive. But they've been left with disability, injury, illness because of the physical harm that was done to them through their attempt. Hope that answers your question. All right, we got a question from jolly old England. Promise I won't do that again. Alice from Dover. Again, she ties in with Sue. She wants to know why. Why would somebody take their life? Why would somebody choose to leave me? It's a really interesting question because at the heart of the question again is this idea that every person wants love and acceptance, and they want to be who they are, and they want to be who they are with the people that they love. So why would somebody leave? It's interesting. You've got to turn the tables because it's got nothing to do with you. And it's real hard to understand the thinking there because it does have nothing to do with you. A person is just so caught in their grief and their heartache that um, they can't see anything outside of themselves. And they might, like I did, be thinking that their presence was hurting other people. So if they are thinking about you, they actually think they're doing a good thing for you, or they can do that, in my experience. Hope that helps. Nobody wants to leave you. Nobody is sitting there thinking, oh, I've got to get away from this person. I'm going to try and take my life. No, they're not thinking about that. They're thinking about themselves and their heartache and their pain. And that has nothing to do with you. Okay. Andrew, couldn't quite figure out where you were from, dude. So forgive me. You asked about hopelessness. You talked about you were asking along the lines of, and I'm going to paraphrase your question because it was a big one. You wrote a big thing, and I responded online to that. But you were basically asking, does suicidal ideation and hopelessness work together, and how does that dynamic work? And I think that suicidal ideation sometimes is out of our control. But our feelings of extreme hopelessness and helplessness can amplify that experience of suicidal ideation. This idea that, um, you know, it'll be better tomorrow, which we all think whenever the first thing we say to somebody, like the same first thing we say to somebody with PTSD, and I do it as well, is I ask, did you get it from military service? Even though I know that it's horrible to be asked that because I get asked it all the time. Oh, you've got PTSD. You must be in the army. No, I wasn't. Um, so this thought of, hey, just get over it. It'll be okay. Everything's going to be all right. Imagine that you cannot even comprehend that idea. Everything's going to be all right. You don't even know what all right looks like. You don't know what everything's going to be all right is going to feel like because you know that the pain is never going away. So your entire life is going to be colored by this pain, and you're never going to be able to get past that because it's so all encompassing. It's hopeless. It's hopelessness. It's this idea that nothing will or can ever get better. That's where I think hopelessness ties in with suicidal ideation. Here's a question. um, uh, Devon? No, that's Dover. I'm sorry, I've messed up the name of this one. I can't remember. Faith. Yes, I am a Christian. Yes, I am a Bible believing Christian. I guess you could call me a born again Christian. Um, Again, not really happy with labels. Don't really like to limit myself. Um, if anything, I would like to call myself is that I'm a follower of Jesus. Yeah, I try to get to the truth of what he actually said and did, and I try to do that. There's a Bible verse. It says, I have hidden your word in my heart so that I might not sin against you. It's interesting, that idea, hidden. So I've secreted it away. I've got it in a special place. And then there's another verse that talks about um, always let your light shine. This little light of mine, I'm going to let it shine. You know that song? This idea that true faith, true relationship with Jesus will shine through. You won't even have to say anything. Anyway, faith. Faith played a massive part in my suicidal ideation because I had to get past the idea that if I killed myself, I was going to hell. Now, you might not believe in heaven or hell, and that's okay. I just want you to understand that for me, it's a literal reality. I believe that there is a place called hell that people can go to. Now, I don't know what form it takes. I just know that it's the opposite of heaven. I don't know if people are going to be tortured there. I don't know. I don't. But I do believe it's a real place. I believe that heaven is a real place. And for me, to get to a point where I was so without hope, that things were so bad, that I had to say to myself, I don't care anymore. Hell has got to be better than what I'm feeling. Think about that for a second. Hell has got to be better than what I'm going through right now. That's how much my mind lies to me. This is the worst feeling in the world. Well, no, it's not. I'm not starving. I have a roof over my head. I'm not incapacitated in some way. I'm not in a war zone. Never have been. I'm not a refugee. All things considered, my life is pretty good. But my mind is telling me that what I'm going through, the pain in my head, is worse than the worst experience that anybody else can have in the world. It really is bizarre when you think of it that way. It's kind of hitting me. But we were talking about faith, and where um, that's where I truly realized how hopeless I thought things were, when I figured that hell would be better than what my mind is doing to me. Man, I'm going to try and remember that. I want that to be a second kind of affirmation that I use. I don't want to die. I want to be home. And seriously, are you really in hell right now? Interesting. Okay. Okay. No, I don't want to talk about that. We've already spoken about that. Guilt. Guilt. Interestingly enough, I don't know that I remember talking about guilt. It happens a lot more when somebody you love tries to kill themselves. But for me, the guilt came sort of afterwards. What have I done? What have I done to my family? How much have I hurt them? I don't believe that I felt any guilt before I tried to take my life. I don't think so. It was just utter hopelessness. And as I said, it felt like I was in hell. It's that interesting thing where you're going through this mental illness journey and it sucks. But it's so all consuming that it can be all that you think about. What I love about how I get to speak about my mental illness in schools and workplaces, often I'm purging. Often I'm taking thoughts that are in my head and I'm reminding myself. I'm just saying, hey, this is how things were. This is where you are now. Never would have imagined that. Yes, my life has not gone the way that I thought it would. Nothing in my life has gone the way I thought it would, except for my marriage. I figured that when I get married, I'm marrying one person and that's it. And we're coming up to, I think, 27 years in a couple of days, which is pretty exciting. Guilt. Yeah, we're going to talk about guilt in part 2. That's going to be next week. I can't. I'm done. I can't do any more of this today. The well is dry. Oh man. Hey, whatever you're going through, whatever it is that you're struggling with, be patient. That's what I did yesterday. I was at a school fete. It was noisy. There was people around me. There was conversations happening that were driving me nuts. And I was ready to freak out a couple of times. This close to panic attack. And each time I just went, everything's okay. You're safe. A few years ago, I couldn't have done that. That to me is immense progress. The fact that I stayed for the whole thing, for me, is a massive victory. Alrighty, I will speak to you again next week. Bye for now. Thank you for listening to Shattered the podcast. I'd like to thank our producer, Meredith Brosnan, our executive producer, Torian Lau, and the band Adelaide for allowing us to use their song as our theme. Go to shatteredthepodcast.com for more information.